Hey guys, welcome to our lesson for today. So let me start just by asking you this question. I think you know the answer to this, but did you know that the definitions or meaning of words changes pretty much regularly over the course of years? I think you know this, but I want to give you a few examples just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so I want you to take this word right here. Nice, right? That's a compliment. If something good happens, you say it's nice. If you did well on something, it's an affirmation. Nice job. Well, that word used to mean silly. It used to mean foolish. It used to mean simple. It's not a compliment at all like it is today. So let's take another word. Let's look at this one right here. Silly. Well, we don't use this word a whole lot. But you know what it means. It's not a compliment. It's meant to be goofy or weird. But that's not what this word used to mean. In its earliest uses, this word referred to things that were worthy or blessed. This was a compliment. To be called silly was to be called blessed or worthy. And then later it became to mean weak or vulnerable, and then most recently, it's been used to refer to those things that are foolish. Okay, let's do another one. Here it is. What do you think? Awful. Again, you might use this word a little bit in your life, but it's not a good word. If things are awful, it means they're bad. But again, words change meaning over time. This word used to mean worthy of awe, like being full of awe. And that's a good thing. To be awful was to have the awe or majesty of God. And so people would say, the awful majesty of God. That would be a phrase people would use. It was a good thing. All right, last word here. Right, fizzle. Do you ever use it? I don't think you do. But I think you could guess at the meaning of it. Today we talk about fizzle being like a dud. Something fizzled out. It didn't work right. Well, this word, this verb, once upon a time meant, the act of producing quiet flatulence. Another way of saying that is silent farting. That's what fizzle used to mean. Think silent but deadly, right? So American college slang, it flipped the word's meaning to refer to failing at things. But that wasn't until much later after the word was introduced. So you get this, right? We're on the same page now. Words change. Well, so what? Well, I've said this a lot, and you'll hear me say this even more in the future, but the stories that we tell ourselves, they impact how we see things. The stories your parents tell you, they impact how you see things. The stories of your culture, they absolutely shape you and they influence how you see things and how you live. The story of your faith, this can also shape how you see things and how you live in really powerful, life-giving ways, because it's the story of how people have experienced the presence of God over the course of thousands of years. The problem, though, is that sometimes the words we encounter in the Bible, they may not mean the same thing to us now as they did when they were written. So it can be a little bit confusing. That's why I went through this whole exercise at the very beginning of our time together this time. Words change, they do, and they have changed in the Bible. So in this unit, we are talking about a word that is really, really important to understanding the biblical story, the story of our faith. And that word is this one right here. Justice. Okay, I want you to do a little bit of word association with justice. When I say justice, what is the very first thing that comes to your mind? What image do you see in your head? So let me guess, does it have to do something with law? Do you imagine a courtroom or a judge with a gavel? Do you see a law enforcement officer? In this country, we have a Department of Justice, and we have justices on the Supreme Court that make rulings when there is a question about law. In this country, when people are brought to justice, well, that typically means that someone is held accountable for a crime that she or he committed. You can apply this to a way of thinking about your home too. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a moment and pause the video and talk to your mom, dad, or another adult in the family about these two questions. And here they go, I'm gonna say them. What are the top 3 most important rules or laws that your family follows in the house? Like, what are the top 3 family rules? Get it? Okay, and then I want you to answer, after you've identified the 3, what happens when you don't follow the rules? What's the punishment? How is justice in this way dispensed when you break the family rules? Now, parents or the adults, I want you to answer this question also, but from the memory of when you were in middle school. So think back to your parents' house when you lived there. What were the top 3 rules that you had when you were growing up? And what happened when you disobeyed or broke those rules? Okay, ready to pause the video to answer this? Ready, set, and pause. I'm hoping you paused. Please tell me you're pausing and talking. I'm just going to go on for a little bit because I'm hoping that you're pausing. All right, here we go again. Hopefully you had that conversation. Now, justice in the Bible, because that's what we're talking about. But justice in the Bible, the word is different. It has very little to do with being punished for not following the laws or rules. Like I said, words can change meaning over time. In the Bible, justice is not getting even or making others pay for their crimes. No. Justice is about making sure everyone has enough of what they need to live the best possible life that God intends for creation. When the Bible talks about justice, they talk about justice for the poor and justice for the oppressed, the widow, the orphan, the resident alien. And if you don't know what that means, that's just another way of saying the refugee or the immigrant. Why? Why are these groups lifted out as groups that need justice? Well, because these are vulnerable groups. They are vulnerable populations. They are targets for oppression. These are the groups that have absolutely no power whatsoever. And so the biblical authors and the prophets of ancient Israel, they wanted the community to know that caring for the least of those in this world, those people who need the most support and help, you cannot separate that from worshiping or being in relationship with God. To worship God, to be in relationship with God, is to care for the least. Oh, that is such a central aspect to our faith. The Old Testament prophet Micah wrote these words to the people of Israel. I'm going to read it here. How can I stand up before God and show proper respect to the high God? Should I bring an armload of offering topped off with yearling calves? Would God be impressed with thousands of rams and buckets and barrels of olive oil? Would he be moved if I sacrificed my firstborn child, my precious baby, to cancel my sin? But he's already made it plain how to live, what to do, what God is looking for in men and women. It's quite simple. do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with God. Justice is central. Essentially what that reading is saying is that, you know what, ancient Israel, it doesn't matter what you do for worship. Don't do these things. Don't offer sacrifices and make offerings. Don't go to church if you're not going to practice justice, because it's meaningless. The prophet Amos makes it even more clear. He's harsh. He's harsh to the community. He is speaking to the ancient Israelites again, and like Micah, he criticizes worship practices that are devoid of justice. So again, let me read just a portion of a reading from Amos, and it has again to do with practicing faith without justice. And I'm going to read it how it should be read. Here we go. I can't stand your religious meetings. I'm fed up with your conferences and conventions. I want nothing to do with your religion projects, your presentations, your slogans, your goals. I'm sick of your fundraising schemes, your public relations and image making. I've had all that I can take of your noisy ego music. When was the last time you sang to me? Do you know what I want? I want justice, oceans of it. I want fairness, rivers of it. That's what I want. That's all I want. When the prophet writes these words and says this, he speaks for God. This is what God wants. God wants justice. Do you hear this? Do you know that justice is central to how we understand God? God wants the best possible life for all of God's creation, and I mean all people. And when there are individuals or groups of people who are suffering at the hands or the policies or the actions of another individual or a group, God's justice needs to be done. And God calls us to be a part of that justice, and as part of our faith tradition, to work for justice in this world for others. I want you to think about this. Who is it in our world that needs justice? Who is it in our world that has to live in fear or go without? So, if you woke up this morning feeling safe and warm, and then went and had breakfast and then got a ride to school, well, that's great. But that's not everyone's experience. You have to know that you're blessed in this way. Who are those that live in fear? Who are those that don't have enough? Who are those that need justice in your school, in your community, in your country, in your world? Being a disciple of Jesus is being someone who practices biblical justice, which is restorative justice, which has nothing to do with justice that we talk about in our modern legal system. This word has a different meaning in the Bible. To end the lesson for today, and to help generate additional conversation, Matt will bring you back to a week after George Floyd was killed. That was a piece, or what you're going to see is a piece that we used as part of a sermon as a way to help others understand the biblical message of justice and what it means to be a disciple of Jesus living today. At the end of the video, I want you to discuss the questions that will be posted on the screen as a family as you think about this really important word that is a cornerstone of our faith. Justice.
What does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? I wonder about Jesus' first disciples, waking up in the aftermath of his death. How confusing, how frustrating, how horrible it must have been. They had followed Jesus, their rabbi, to the best of their ability, and now what? What do we do? Where do we go? Who do we follow? What happened? This past Monday, I made my way downtown to see what had happened for myself and to listen to what was going on. As a disciple of Jesus today, I believe he may be calling me to stop, to listen, and amplify the voice of the unheard.
But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
So as I continue to process what has happened and what has been happening not just in our city but all over the world, I will continue to listen when I need to stand up when it's right, or to take a back seat if that's what's needed, and to try and follow Jesus into a deeper understanding of bringing restorative justice to all of God's children, but especially the ones who have been crying out. May their voice be heard. And may we all get better at following Jesus.